Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Jim, I'm doing well. It's been fun hanging out with you today.
Yeah.
Uh, it's always fun hanging out with you today. I told you before we got started, I got to go fishing. I don't fish. I fish like maybe once every 5 years, so I
Wow.
don't
That's
go very
sad.
often. And,
That's sad.
Laura and I were with her brother and his wife out on a
Yeah.
boat on Saginaw Bay walleye
Mm.
fishing. And, you know, lo and behold, Laura caught a 20-inch walleye, and we thought that was going to be the big one of the day. And we're
Yeah.
all excited about it. And I snagged a 28-inch walleye, Jim, uh,
Nice.
and he did not want to come into the boat. So it
You got an
was
opinion. I have an
for me,
opinion
he
on
was an
this.
inexperienced fisherman, trying to
Yeah.
get that fish in the boat was a lot of fun. And it's just fun that we can talk about all that kind of stuff. And as you said,
Yeah.
you and I could talk for hours and never get down to business,
Ever.
but we're going to get down to business today.
Yeah.
Um, this is the second part of a series entitled Staffing Your Church from Within.
From within.
Jim, last week we talked about the genesis of this idea, your experience at a church in Arizona
Yeah.
as a youth pastor, where the seeds of this were really born, and now as the lead pastor of Freedom Center here in Fenton, Michigan, how using this approach has allowed you to not be really affected by the thinning, shallowing pool of available pastors to serve in
Yeah.
roles, associate roles, even lead pastor roles. And so we had such a great conversation last week around this. And today in part two, I really want us to get uber practical, because
Please.
I think sometimes when we talk concepts, we're very excited about them. I think sometimes what might go through the mind of those who listen and watch is, well, that's good for Jim or that's good for John, but
Right. Right.
where do I start? It just seems so overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
And so let's get practical today. And we're gonna talk about how we actually take this idea of staffing from within, of releasing people into their
Yeah.
God-given why instead of recruiting people to fill a slot. How do we actually get started? Jim, so you ready to rock and roll?
Hit me. Let's do this. This is fun.
All right. One of the teaching pieces of this whole process, Jim, is the pyramid of ministry.
Yeah.
It's a nice little picture. You draw a pyramid and you speak to that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think one of the things we do in our church today is, if you're watching my video, my fingers are out, and I'm just forming a pyramid. That the base of the pyramid, we can understand, predetermines the stable height of the pyramid. This is why
Yeah.
the pyramids, in Giza have been around for what 3,500 years without maintenance, and why the Washington Monument is seldom seen without scaffolding around it. There's a base that allows the stability of it. So when you think of ministry, we often want to measure the height of it. How many people did you have last Sunday? How many people you're running?
Mhm.
How many people came to your event? Not that that's an insignificant question. I mean, God counts things in Scripture. There's a reason for it, but the number of how many came or how many are attending is really servant to how many do you have ministry for.
Gotcha.
In other words, ministry to people is nice, but they won't stay for very long if there's not ministry for them. So think of it this way: a family shows up and they have kids, but you have no kids ministry. Even though you can count them that day, maybe for the next several weeks, there will come a day when they go, well, there's just not ministry for us. So we're going to go someplace that has ministry for us. So maybe
Mhm.
the number we should be most concerned with is not how many are attending, but how many do we have ministry for at the base of our pyramids? Then you say, well, how do I get people to the base of the pyramid? And there's two ways. One is you can tell them there's a need, put it in the bulletin, talk about it every week, write sermons that guilt and manipulate well-meaning Christians into subservient, and then once they get in the nursery, never let them out again. Chain them to the crib, and grandma has to stay there for the rest of her existence, right? We've
Wow.
all seen this. We all know
And
this
I
poor
shouldn't
lady,
and I shouldn't be laughing because it's really not funny. But
but it's true.
there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. So that's one way. The other way
Mhm.
is to ask them questions. And most people like to talk about anything. They would like to talk about themselves because they're the only expert in the room about that. Talk to them about politics or religion or finances. Maybe they want to talk, maybe they don't. But hey, what did God save you from? Tell me your testimony. And then when they get done talking, say, what do you believe God saved you for? Like, why? If his purpose was to take you to heaven, then why are you still here? What do you think you're supposed to be doing? If we're God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works that God prepared in advance for us to do, what do you think those works are that God prepared you for? God prepared the works. God prepared you. Before there was a you, there was a reason for you. God didn't create you and then have to find something for you to do. There was something that needed to be done. So God created you. What do you think that is?
Yeah.
And then listening again. And often they say, gee, I don't really know. And that could be a 15-year-old kid. That could be a 75-year-old widow. What do you think God created? What are you supposed to do now? What is your purpose in life? And man, every study we see shows us that purpose is important to our health, our mental and physical and spiritual health, that
Right.
people want to know. We just said last week, 57% of Americans were thinking, how do I get more meaning and purpose in my life? Either monthly, weekly, or daily. 21% daily, waking up saying, why am I doing this again? 21% weekly, probably driving home or driving to work on Monday morning going, why am I doing this again? Once a month when they get their paycheck, why am I doing this again? It's not life as we have imagined it is often very subservient to other masters. Well, we have a master who has an abundant life, exceedingly abundantly above all we ask, think, or imagine, life and life to the full, all these promises, all these words that Jesus say. And I would say 80% of the people I know don't really know the language to describe what that life is. So then we say, uber practical, let's ask some meaningful questions that begin to kind of carve away things that aren't you to reveal the you that is inside there.
So Jim, what are some of those questions? Give me the we use the kind of the label, the three P's, three circles.
The three P's. Yeah. So it would sound like this in a conversation. We sit down, you're new to the church, you're new to the faith. We're sitting on a plane next to each other and you're the victim that had to sit next to me because I'm going to talk about this to you, and what are you passionate about? First P, passion. What are you passionate? What thrills you? When you're done doing all the things you have to do, what is it you really want to do? When you have free time, I don't mean just hobbies and recreation. Those are good. But if God has a passionate heart, what part of that heart has he shared with you? And it's fascinating to hear the answers because some people say, I want to start a business, like a mobile dog grooming business. Other people say, I want to be a police officer. Other people say, I want to be a school teacher. Other people say, I want to get into politics. And I try to keep a straight poker face as they tell me these things, but this her name's Sydney, and she has that dog grooming business now. What she told me was, I want to be in an enclosed space with a wet dog. And I don't get it. I want to be a school teacher. It's like, you're going to go through all those years of school to earn a third of the money you could earn doing something else. When someone says, I'm just passionate about working with junior high schoolers. I'm like, really? Because junior high schoolers don't even like junior high schoolers. That like what they're telling me is that God has given them a passion. It's his passion. It's a piece of his heart that's beating inside of their chest. And it's a clue. It's not like whatever you're passionate, go live your passion. I don't believe that. But to ignore what we're passionate about is to ignore the one who gave us that passion. I think that would be a mistake. So that's the first P. What's your passion? Second, what's your pain? And this is where it really shifts. I seldom start with pain because we're Americans. We don't like to talk about pain. We've got a pill for that. We've got a therapy for that. We've got a distraction for that. When we're in pain, we turn the channel, we take a pill, we watch the Three Stooges and watch them be in pain and laugh. But we don't like pain. But I'm telling you, back to that thought, if God has a passionate heart and he gave you a piece of that passion, understand this, God's heart is broken over some of the things that are happening on this planet right now. Not everything is your problem, but I promise you something is. And so what is it that uniquely affects you? Your passion thrills you. What is the pain that kills you? I just can't stand it. Sometimes you talk about it and the people around you roll their eyes like, oh, there he goes again. There she goes again, talking about, single moms and drug addicts and, business people that are multi-billionaires, but they've done well, but they don't know how to do good, but whatever it is, but it really breaks you. And what we don't understand is that heroes are made out of pain, not passion. You may join the fire department because you're passionate about your community, but it will not be passion that drives you into a burning home when there's a kid inside there screaming. It'll be the thought that if I don't do this, it's funny. Heroes are weird. You're a hero. They hear say that. Someone goes, you're a hero. They always look down or away. They look down. That's a sign of shame. They look away. That's a sign of avoidance. I don't want you to see that I'm not comfortable with what you just said. But the reason they look down and away is because to them, it's not a heroic act. Matter of fact, it would be harder to not run into the burning building than to run into the burning building.
Yeah.
So that's the power of our God-given pain. We're all Nehemiah was a hero because he had a pain about the city of Jerusalem. Moses is a hero because he had a pain about the enslaved people of Israel. Jesus is a hero because he was moved with compassion. For God so loved the world that he gave his son, so whoever believes in him wouldn't perish. Like we're perishing. He goes, nah, that is so unthinkable that I am left with no other option but to do the unimaginable, because I will not. It would be easier in some ways, and this is a lot theologically. It'd be easier for Jesus to go to the cross than not to go to the cross, because not going to the cross condemns and damns all of mankind that he loves. He had to do it because of pain.
Jim, can I just interject one thought here?
Yeah.
I think this pain piece is unique.
Yeah.
In the equation. I believe passion can ebb and flow to some degree.
Sure.
Pain is a constant.
Yeah.
Pain gets you up out of bed in the morning when your passion isn't there.
Yes.
It has to do. I heard a wonderful message from a preacher that if I said his name, everybody would probably know who he is. But I'm going to give him credit anonymously. This isn't my thought.
Yeah.
But it impacted me as I listened to it. He says, you have an I must in your life.
Yeah.
Jesus, I must go. We must go through Samaria.
Yeah.
Paul, I must go. Paul is being told by a prophet, man, where you go, this next stop, you're gonna be bound, and it's gonna be painful. And Paul says, I must go.
Yeah.
And I think there is that sense of I must. I think that's the pain part of it. It's like it pains me. Here's my pain. It pains me when pastors suffer with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Because those are preventable.
Yeah.
And it pains me that people might look at them as less than, not a good leader, not a strong person. That creates pain in my life.
Yeah.
When a pastor leaves his or her post prematurely, that's painful to me. When they're treated poorly and they don't know how to navigate that and they get beat up, that's painful to me. And so, Jim, I don't jump out of bed every morning saying, oh, I can't wait to get to work today. Some days I do.
Yeah.
A lot of days I do. I'm very excited about it. But there are days where I don't feel that, but I feel the pain. And that's what keeps me putting one foot in front of the other when my passion isn't there.
Yeah. I heard somebody say once, if you succeed, your passion will be satisfied. If you fail often enough, your passion will be discouraged. But if you're in pain, you really don't have options. The guy that jumps on the grenade for his buddies knows exactly what's about to happen and was never trained to do it. So why does he do it? It's because in his mind, in that moment, it would be less painful to give his life for his friends than to jump away from the grenade knowing his friends are going to die.
Yeah. And
he did nothing about it. So we come back to the junior high thought. Like I'm just passionate about junior high school kids. What's your pain? My old man ran out on me when I was 12 and I didn't have a father growing up. And man, when I see boys without that father figure in their life, right? I mean, that now we're starting to get somewhere. Now you're beginning to, someone is telling you they're the best youth sponsor you've ever had. And you won't owe them a favor when they serve. They will owe you a favor because you helped unearth the gold that had been deposited in their soul.
That's right.
It's just so much fun. Yeah. And then the last one, John, the last P is proficiency. Yeah. Like, what are you just naturally gifted at? God gives people abilities that are not fair. Some people got in the talent line 3 times. That's why some of us can't play the piano and sing. You know what I mean? There are some people that, as God was creating people, they got in the talking line or whatever. But people are just good at things. Some people are just good at numbers or good at and people are good at sales or they're just naturally gifted. Well, I would go a step farther and just add one word to that. I think they're super naturally gifted.
Mhm.
God gave them something because as he created them for a reason, they're going to have some abilities. Now we'll never get away from trusting God and counting on him for everything. And in our weakness, he is
That's right.
strong. But that doesn't mean that Paul didn't know how to talk to a crowd. That doesn't mean that he was adverse to studying. He wasn't a good student. When
Yep.
when he gets called, you see the passion, pain, proficiency of a man completely just consumed by his Savior, and he goes out and I can't imagine the pain of being caned, beaten with rods and stoned and shipwrecked. And I mean, after he gets buried under a pile of rocks as if he were dead, he walked back into that same town that night. He's not a masochist. He's a
Right.
man. It would be more painful to ignore the spiritual needs of that town. So I think pastors fall into this really well, as do combat soldiers, police officers, school teachers, people that we don't do what we do for the money and the fame, right? It's because we're passionate about it. It kills us that it wouldn't if it weren't done well, and God gave us a gift to do these things. But this is true of accountants. This is true of
Mhm.
storytellers. This is true of mothers and fathers and housewives and
Right.
house husbands, stay-at-home dads. Like God gives us what we need to obey his calling. And those are all clues to what God created us to be. I believe those are the
Yep.
best, most succinct clues. So if that were the case, it's the Olympics, the Olympic flag, it overlaps.
Mhm.
So passion, a circle, pain, a circle, underneath that, a third circle coming up where they all intersect somewhere. We call that the sweet spot. There's this place where your passion, pain, and proficiency overlap. Now, as a leader, as a pastor, as a father, as a friend, this is where I want everybody around me living from. So we'll go back to the junior high school guy. What are you passionate about? Junior high school kids. What's your pain? Junior high school kids that don't have a dad. What's your proficiency? I've got a master's degree in secondary education. All right. I'm not going to make you a greeter. I'm not going to put you in the
Yep.
nursery. I'm not
Yep.
even going to introduce you to the stewardship committee. Or I'm going to take you to the youth pastor and introduce you to someone who's going to disciple you in these gifts. You're going to be joined with a group of people that have the same passion, pain, and proficiency. And together, you guys are going to change kids' lives. And you're going to be so fulfilled you're going to get there early, like you said, prayed up. You're going to stay late. They're going to ask you questions. You're not going to know the answers. And you're going to get in your word like you've never gotten in the word before, not because you want to be doctrinally accurate, because this kid is counting on you to come back with truth.
Yep.
It's
That's so good.
once we discover who we are, most of the disciplines of Christianity become quite simple. Matter of fact, we don't need to be pushed into them and guilted into them. We just pray for 5 minutes. Can't you pray for 1 hour? You fall in love with some junior high school kid who's thinking about committing suicide. You won't stop praying. That child will be on your broken heart until there's nothing left to pray about. It's just,
Yep.
we're not creating workers for the factory called church. We're gold miners discovering treasures that God has buried underneath middle class expectations, and releasing them into the world as ambassadors of the kingdom of God. And it's a wonderful process.
So, Jim, let's do the lightning round here. This is the
Okay.
the last question I'm going to ask you. What are some maybe 3, 4, 5 quick steps? Now, they're not quick in implementing, but just where, how does a pastor, how does a team get this into the culture of their church? Because we're of the mind that if the lead pastor grabs onto this and nobody else does, it's probably not going to go very far.
No.
Eventually, you want this to be part of the DNA of your church. Can you give us just like a
real quick?
starters here?
I mean, there's several ways to get started. One is I've written a couple books on it, from recruiting to releasing, and Why is Greater Than What by Jim Wiegand, Wiegand, available on Amazon and iBooks and all that kind of stuff. So that would be a place. The other thing is call Converge Coach. Email, or go to the website rather, convergecoach.com. 30 minutes. Let's spend 30 minutes. Just click on that tab. I'd like to talk to Jim about this in more detail. I would love, because those are my 3 circles overlap, is helping people discover these things. Yeah. So I would spend that time. Another place would be, we have this on video seminar that's available. We have this in book form. We teach seminars on this. a 3-hour seminar on a Saturday and then preaching on Sunday morning to your congregation. But here's what I would say: the best way to do it, all those things, and there's another step that's really important, because being inspired, think of it, if Dave Ramsey, you've been through the Financial Peace University, maybe you guys are aware of that, have heard it. If you went to go hear him speak for 3 hours, you might be inspired, but you probably wouldn't apply it in a meaningful way. If you go through Financial Peace University with a group of people learning these principles over a series of weeks, much, much, much higher chance of creating a culture of living debt free. Same thing is true here. So we have a cohort. We're just finishing up one now, and will end on September 10th. On September 17th, we start a new cohort. We teach one that is based out of just for Mongolian pastors, and then we have one that has Baptist, Independent, Wesleyan, Brethren, Church of God, Assemblies of God. They're in Texas, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan. So, but a group of people saying, we want to do this in our church. We spend 4 weeks talking about in great detail this conversation, what it sounds like, what it feels like. There's homework assignments. You'll be going to have this conversation. And then the next 4 weeks after that, it's an 8-week, it's every other week, starting September 17th through the holidays. We'll be meeting, and it'll be the second 4 weeks, we bring in people that have done this in their church, and you interview them. How did you do this? What was your first step? They're a wealth of information. Next week, we have one of them coming on. Jim Westheim from West Branch is going to be here with us.
Yeah, he'll be on our podcast.
A brilliant job of really, I have a dream, he has a scheme. I've got a vision, he has a schematic. And so we have those people come in. They teach the pastors how to do this. So I would say the greatest way, the way that I'm absolutely sure that you'll get it in a way that's applicable, is to join the cohort. But anything we can do to help you, if you're just curious, you just have questions, let's spend some time, or buy the book or see the video seminar. But I doubt that will have the effect that you're wanting. In order to do this, your altar workers need this language. Your greeters need this language. Every youth worker, every young adult worker, every small group leader, every pastor needs the same language. And this needs to be woven into it. And if it does, we have seen, amazing, amazing results. And I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show you it, or help you hear the passion in my heart, that people are doing this, and it is transformational. Jim Westheim, we'll hear about it next week, but in a town of 3,000 people, they have 220 some workers in their church that now is reaching around 800 people in a town of 2,000, 3,000 people. So this isn't theology. I've had this conversation with over 100,000 people face to face in the last 35 years. And I'm telling you, it's a secret sauce. I don't know. It's biblical, and it's systematic, and it's so simple. I've had this conversation with my 4-year-old granddaughter, and she has told me with great confidence that she's going to be a professional fisherwoman. So I believe her. I give her every opportunity to catch fish every time she wants to go fishing.
I thought you were going to say her dream was to be a princess. She's probably already that. So
we have not narrowed down her dreams quite yet. Yeah.
So to our listeners and watchers today, couple of next steps. Go to convergecoach.com, and you will see a tab for the cohorts, and you can click that, and it will give you more information, more detail, allow you to register for the upcoming cohort in September. And then also convergecoach.com, and there's a link that says a button that says start a conversation, and that gives you 30 minutes with one of our team. And if you specifically want to talk to Jim about the content of today's podcast, you can, in the notes, you can just say, hey, I'd like 30 minutes with Jim Wiegand. Jim will reach out to you and answer any questions you might have. I hope that you understand. I hope you do that. We do this because we want to add as much value to you as possible. We want you to be well. We want you to be healthy. We want the church you lead to be well and healthy. And we hope that as we are working through this series, that you know that, and you feel that from us, and that this weekly conversation that Jim and I have is really helping you move the ball down the field in both your personal life and in your professional life. So next week, part 3, the final part of this series, we're going to interview Jim Westheim. at a church. He's an associate at one of the churches, and Jim already mentioned that church.
Yeah.
Somebody who has actually helped to implement this at a pervasive level.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I think you'll find that interview very interesting. So, Pastor, keep going. Don't do this by yourself. If you're struggling, find somebody to talk to. If you don't have anybody to talk to, reach out to us, because we know that a burden shared is half a burden. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, and God will honor that. He will help. He will bless your faithfulness as you continue to lead from alignment.